Me and my brother, we're gonna rule London.
Welcome back to another Kray video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any videos. And for people really into the Krays, join our private Facebook group, Krays Crime Lords of London, where you will find stuff probably unavailable anywhere else. We're an established group with a large membership, and best of all, we're friendly. The link is in the YouTube description section.
Hello, my name is Tony Lambrianou, and I ran with the Kray gang back in the 1960s. I wasn't in the firm itself. I was more like an associate member, along with my brother Chris. But I did get to know the twins well, and I saw a lot of what went on firsthand. I'll only ever tell this story once, and when it's done, I'm going to walk away from it for the rest of my life. I don't want to dwell in the past anymore, but to be free of it, I must confess it. I once made a promise to a remarkable woman, my probation officer, Mrs. Jean Heath, that I would someday tell of my experiences as a professional criminal and as an associate member of the notorious Kray firm. Mrs. Heath has since died, and I owe it to her, my loved ones, and myself to offer this true account of a career which grew out of violence, flourished on fear, and culminated in murder, and ended in prison. So much has been said and written about the Kray gang that we have now become the stuff of legend. But at the heart of that legend are real live people, and if I hope to achieve anything, it's to present them through the facts and not the fantasy of the way we lived. For years, I've been hearing what everybody else has to say about us in courtrooms, books and newspapers, and the twins have taken the chance to reply in print. I intend to set the record straight for all of us that stood together in the dock and went to prison for our crimes. Albert Donahue lived in Bow with his wife Pauline and a couple of kids. He was a dangerous man, feared in the East End. I saw him stab a couple of people. He had to be good, because of his personal job with Reggie, who was very explosive at the time. In my mind, there were no two ways about it. Albert was more than capable of killing a man. On one occasion, Dickie Morgan's girlfriend, Sally, invited a bunch of us round to her ground floor flat in Bethnal Green. There was Dickie, Albert Donahue, my brothers Chris and Nicky, Ronnie Bender, the Cardew brothers from the Angel, myself, and two other men called Billy Thomas and Mickey Bailey. I gave Nicky a .38 pistol to hold on to for me. We always had one near us. Always. Suddenly, an argument broke out between Billy Thomas and Dickie Morgan's brother, Martin. One of the Cardew brothers poked his nose in too. As it developed, a secondary row started between Albert Donahue and Billy Thomas, who was a good friend of his. Billy said, "Albert, you're a slag." At which point Albert said to my brother, "Give me the gun, Nick." As soon as I saw Albert with a gun in his hand, I knew he would pull the trigger. He let 2 or 3 shots go off and shot Billy in the leg. I pushed Mickey Bailey over the balcony to get him out of the way. Chris, Mickey and I got hold of Albert and took the gun off him. We had to dig the bullets out of the wall and the floor. I was in the middle because I knew all the parties concerned. Billy was a good friend of mine, so I pushed him out the door, telling him, "I think you'd better fuck off," which he did. I saw him a couple of weeks later when he came round to see me and Chris, wanting to know how he stood on it. Albert was also rumored to have stabbed a man called Billy Amos, who later became a supergrass in Smithfield Meat Market, over a deal involving some clothes. Albert was the buyer. Amos claimed to have been visited in hospital by some of the police who were investigating the Kray firm. He told me the police said, "If anything happens to Donahue, this is yours," meaning if there were any revenge attacks on Albert, the police would fit up Amos. So obviously, Albert was already cooperating with the police. At this time, though, the only one of us who didn't trust Albert was Reggie Kray. A couple of years before, Donahue had fallen foul of the twins, and Reggie had shot him in the leg. I remember Reggie telling me he never really trusted him after that. How can you ever trust a person you've shot? Albert wasn't the only member of the firm to be shot in the leg by Reggie. Another was Nobby Clark, a villain who'd been with the twins for years. He was about 5'1", Nobby, a real character with a bad little temper, ducking and diving all around. He did a lot of running about for the twins, and he looked after one or two places, but he was really more of a companion for them. We all had a liking for Nobby. He never complained or bragged about the fact that he had been shot by Reggie. It came out of a nothing incident that blew up out of all proportion when Reggie had the hump about something. So although the general impression of the firm was of one fearsome and united front, we had our own internal troubles every now and again. Additionally, there were undercurrents and needle matches which never actually boiled over into violence, but were still very much a part of the atmosphere around the firm at that time. Connie Whitehead, for instance, was a whipping boy for the twins, even though he'd been with them for years, and was a close member of the firm, involved in everything, and very capable, the typical Cockney villain who was going places. He was involved in frauds and violence, and helped after both the McVitie and Cornell murders to an extent. Chris and I both liked Connie. When we got to know him, he was a go-between for us in our early dealings with the twins. He used violence only as a last resort, but when he did, he was very useful. For some reason, Ronnie always used to take his rages out on him, and the twins always wanted to know where he was. "Get hold of Whitehead," he was always saying. He would show at the last minute, always looking uncomfortable. Ronnie Kray kept Tommy Cowley on his toes too. Tommy, along with businessmen like Leslie Payne and Freddie Gore, who fronted companies for the twins, worked on the financial side of the firm, strictly on deals, never violence. Ronnie would always be saying to him, "Go out and get me some money." Once there were about 10 of us in a Turkish club in Liverpool Street, and Ronnie was on about Cowley all night. "I hope he's out there getting me some fucking money." All of a sudden, Cowley appeared. Ronnie said, "Where the fucking hell have you been?" Cowley replied, "What the fucking hell's it got to do with you? It's the only time I've ever seen anybody other than Reggie or Charlie Kray get away with having a go at Ronnie." He just looked at Cowley as if he didn't exist. Cowley was lucky. No one stood a chance against Ronnie Kray, least of all him. I recall one night in a club when a big argument broke out involving Tommy. I saw words being exchanged. A geezer was having a go at Tommy, and Tommy didn't want to know. I had to step in on his behalf and do the other bloke with a big glass ashtray. Outside the small and turbulent world of the firm, bigger problems were beginning to pile up. For Reggie Kray, life turned into a nightmare with the death of his wife Frances from an overdose of barbiturates in June 1967. He went through a very, very bad time within himself, the lowest ebb of his life. For a while, I don't think he could believe that Francis had gone. He managed to remain in control of everything that was going on. But he was very vulnerable. He was on the bottle, and people in the firm were able to influence him, whereas previously, that could never have happened. It may well have been a combination of these things that led him to murder only a few months later. Reggie had loved Francis and treated her well. After her death, he thought a lot about what had happened to her, the bad circumstances under which he had lost her. At times, he became virtually unapproachable. He suffered terrible remorse. Although there was no way he had anything to do with her dying, it wasn't his fault. You can't be responsible for what another person's going to do. There were accusations coming from her side of the family, and bad feelings between Reggie and Frankie Shay, Francis's brother, who had long been a friend of all of us. It was a very awkward situation, but it was understandable. You've got two brothers-in-law, and you've got a sister and a wife who's died. Frankie had introduced Francis to Reggie, and I think he thought, if it wasn't for Reggie, she'd be alive today. Reggie was trying to handle the loss of a wife he adored, as well as the flack from the Shays, particularly Francis's parents, who had tried to keep her away from him after they first separated at the end of 1965. They disapproved of Reggie and involved Francis in what Reg later referred to as a tug of love, putting pressure on her to leave him. When she did, she suffered a nervous breakdown and attempted suicide twice. But she was about to go on a reconciliation holiday with Reg at the time of her death. A lot of people have tried to blame Ronnie Kray for the split in the first place. But to me, Ronnie's attitude appeared to be, they're married, let them get on with it. I don't believe he was in any way instrumental in breaking up the marriage. In the dark days after Francis died, Reggie seemed capable of doing anything. One night he said to me, "You got a car with you, Tony? Drive me round to the Vic." The Victory was a pub in Murray Grove, Hoxton. We got in the car, and when we got to Old Street, it suddenly dawned on me that he knew Frankie Shay drank in the Vic with a fella called Twiggy Llewellyn. Despite the fact that Francis and her family were from Hoxton, and the twins themselves had been born there, they generally didn't like the area or anyone from it. Now Reggie was going to see the very people that he wanted to take it out on. He had a gun on him, and I realized that he was thinking about shooting Frankie Shay. By now, the animosity between them had intensified. Frankie had taken Reggie to court over a debt of £1,000, which I thought was a wrong thing to do. The reason why Reggie hadn't paid him was purely and simply to get back at him over Francis. Now, driving towards Hoxton, I found myself in a difficult position, knowing both parties. We're talking about a Reggie Kray, who was not the Reggie Kray that I knew, a man who was bitter about his wife dying, tending to blame the other side. In his shoes, I would have felt the same. Anybody would. And I understood his feelings, especially since other people were putting a lot of poison in, sticking up Francis's name while knowing it was a sore point. At the same time, I saw the other side of it all, and I could never have harmed Frankie Shay, could never have seen him shot. I parked the car opposite the Victory and sat there for half an hour talking to Reggie as a pal. In my heart of hearts, I was almost certain that Reggie could not have hurt Frankie. If he'd come face to face with him, he'd have been more likely to break down, because every time he saw him, he saw Francis. Or maybe he might even have given him a few quid, rather than do anything to him. But when Reggie was in a funny mood, you could never be completely sure. I said to him, "Look, Reggie, you don't mean it. Come on, you don't mean it." And as we talked, I knew that the moment of danger had passed. Reggie calmed down. He was rational again. I remember one night at the height of the bad feeling. I went into a club called Oscar's in Albemarle Street in Mayfair. A lot of the chaps used to drink there at the time. I was talking to the co-owner, Peter Hogg, at the door, while my Nicky went on inside. Frankie Shea, who was in there, must have seen my brother, because he came walking out immediately and bumped straight into me. He said, "Am I all right? I know you and Chris are very strong with the twins now." I answered, "Frank, we go back a long way. We were boyhood friends, and I'd never do anything to harm you. I'd be insulted if you thought I would." One day, in the Carpenter's Arms, I said to Reggie, "Don't ask me to go against Frank." "I wouldn't," he replied. The police campaign against us was now gathering momentum. We were aware of the pressure increasing gradually, even though we still had no inkling of the lengths the gangbusters were going to, or the amount of information they were gathering. It was now more than a year since Ronnie's murder of George Cornell in The Blind Beggar, which happened while I was in prison in March 1966. On the face of it, things couldn't have looked better for the Kray firm. The twins were at the height of their power, and there was no opposition. The law had done them a favor by nicking the Richardson brothers, Charlie and Eddie, and the rest of their gang. There had been a big rivalry with the Richardsons, dating back to when I first started working and drinking in the West End, with certain incidents causing a build-up of ill feeling. Looking back, there was no need for it. It was all to do with personality clashes and bravado, with everybody doing well and congregating in the same places. We all used clubs like the Astor and the Starlight. And if a member of one firm walked in and saw 5 members of another, words weren't necessary. It wasn't what was said. It was the whole feel of it. A clash had to come. Up to then, everybody had tended to keep to their own side of things, their own territory, not treading on each other's toes within the circles. The Richardsons were powerful in South London. We were powerful on our side of the water, and we had other firms connected and allied to each of us throughout London. But then the so-called swinging 60s took off. It was a boom time, and the West End was where it all happened. Everybody wanted a slice of that. The opportunities were there for all of us to get a good living. But people are greedy. Each firm wanted a bit more than the other. So, of course, it caused conflicts and developed into a power struggle. Several firms were getting their whack out of the West End, but the twins organized it and wound up with a larger slice. In time, though, too many people started trying to jump over each other, especially the South London lot. The Richardsons, who were well known and feared, were expanding fast. The twins called a meet in a club just south of the river, with the intention of sorting it out. All of the firms in London were expected to attend. The Richardsons obviously were invited, but did not send any representatives, which was a direct challenge. So it was decided, rightly or wrongly, that something should be done about them. But unfortunately, they were all nicked, barring George Cornell. Before anything could happen, there was a shootout in a club called Mr. Smith's in Catford, when the Richardsons and another South London gang had a confrontation. It was alleged that Eddie Richardson was one of the leaders, and that he jumped up and challenged the other firm by saying, "No more drinks unless you ask me." I don't know the truth of that, because I wasn't there. Eddie Richardson was more of a fighter, more of a villain than his brother Charlie. He was the sort of man who, when he put his mind to something, he would do it, and he wouldn't take shit from anyone. Charlie, on the other hand, never struck me as a bloodthirsty man. He was first and foremost a businessman, a car dealer, and although he knew his roots, he never suffered fools gladly. He could be hard when he had to be. Allegations were later made that he held kangaroo courts, sat with a wig and gown on, sentenced his victims to torture, and generally did outlandish things. I think this was an exaggeration. Charlie never came across to me in that way, although they did have business to do, the Richardsons, and they ran a formidable empire. They were faced with an equally heavy gang on the night of the Mr. Smith's affair, and all hell broke loose. Frankie Fraser, who was with the Richardsons, was hit by gunfire, and Dickie Hart, a good friend of the twins, who happened to be there at the time, was shot dead. Although the twins were not involved in the Mr. Smith's bust-up, their allegiance to other people, namely Dickie Hart, brought them directly into conflict. Ronnie was all for an out-and-out war, and there could only be one winner, Ronnie Kray. With the rest of the Richardsons under lock and key, Ronnie shot George Cornell through the head a day later as a comeback, and also as a response to Cornell's public denouncement of him as a puff. The words underworld and gangsters started coming into play more and more, and the papers were talking about leading underworld characters. What does that mean? A number of men who drank together in a pub in the East End. These days, such a thing as an underworld exists even less than it did then. Very few successful professional criminals associate with each other. They are very paranoid. They try to live a middle-class life where everything looks legal, even though it isn't. And gangster is a word I find very embarrassing. I hate to be called that. It's a movie name. The things we did, we referred to as business. We didn't do them for fun. We didn't see any point in gaining a reputation only to get nothing out of it. Our game didn't involve pleasure. We did it professionally. It was a business thing, and a business thing only. It was never personal, unless the challenge to the authority of the firm was issued on a personal level. If violence had to be done in a professional way to someone else, it was always referred to as business. Nothing was ever done without good reason. Reputations were there to be pulled down, and it was the twins' job to make sure that nobody could do that. They succeeded brilliantly. They were a one-off. If anybody had the right to be called gangsters, they did. In a way, they belonged in the Chicago days, and that's how they were viewed at the time. They did almost all of their own villainy, even though they didn't have to. Granted, they had to be seen to be able to do it, where violence was concerned, but they had established that long ago. I think they were the type of people who wanted to be able to say, "Look, don't worry about that. We don't need anyone." When the mafia men came over, the twins looked after them well, but they let it be known that they were not going to hand over any of their business interests in London. They were the governors. I think the mafia were a bit wary of them, especially Ronnie, but they did respect them. And so, for a while, life carried on profitably and without competition. And even though the twins unknowingly had one or two bad apples in the firm, they still had some good men around them. Ian Barry, Ronnie's personal minder and an ex-military man, had had an accident in a tank. It had caught fire, leaving him badly scarred from his ear right the way down one side of his neck. It didn't spoil his looks, though, and I thought it gave him a better character. Ian was thoroughly trustworthy. He never spoke about what he got involved in, not even Ronnie's shooting of Cornell, which he witnessed, and he never complained, before or after the convictions. He was genuine and gentlemanly, a very deep thinker who never showed his feelings or put anyone down. Everything he said was constructive. He did what he thought he had to do, and that was it. He gave us help and backup no matter what, and I never heard anyone say a bad word about him. He was very well thought of by the twins and the rest of us. Ronnie could never have picked a better man. He was a credit to Scotland. That's all for this edition, my friends. I'd like to thank you all for listening to my story. I'll catch you again in the next one.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section.